morning sun pierced through the glass walls of Henderson Global Holdings, gleaming across the marble floors like it was announcing another ordinary day. But for Ethan Henderson, the youngest CEO in the company's history and a single father to a 5-year-old girl, was anything but ordinary. Today, he was cornered. He sat behind his sleek mahogany desk, staring at the headline flashing across his tablet. CEO Ethan Henderson, billionaire playboy or unfit father. The article was brutal. A single blurry photograph of him leaving a gala with his daughter asleep in his arms, and a woman in a red dress beside him was enough for tabloids to twist his life into scandal. Investors were pulling back. Board members were calling emergency meetings. NPR teams were panicking. He ran a hand through his hair, sighing deeply. "They don't care that I left early to take Emily home," he muttered under his breath. "They just want a story." That's when Maya Collins appeared at his office door, soft-spoken, composed, holding Emily's pink lunchbox. Her chestnut hair was tied in a loose bun, and her calm eyes always carried the kind of warmth Ethan's chaotic world lacked. She was his daughter's nanny, hired only 6 months ago, but in that short time, she had become the quiet heart of their home. "You forgot this," she said gently, placing the lunchbox on his desk. "Emily wanted you to add a note like you used to." Ethan forced a smile. "Thanks, Maya. You're a lifesaver." She noticed the tension in his shoulders, the clenched jaw. "Rough morning," he exhaled, leaning back. "You could say that. The board's losing faith. The media's calling me reckless. And the investors, well, they're threatening to walk unless I prove I'm stable." Maya tilted her head. "Stable?" Ethan nodded grimly. "They want a family man, a respectable image, someone who doesn't bring chaos to headlines." Her lips parted slightly. "But you are a family man, Ethan. You're raising Emily alone." He chuckled hollowly. "Apparently, that's not enough. They want a wife. A perfect picture." The silence that followed was thick with disbelief. Then, slowly, his gaze lifted toward her. For the first time, his usual corporate coldness softened, replaced by something human, almost desperate. "Maya, ... He began cautiously. "You've been loyal, trustworthy. Emily adores you. And God, I can't believe I'm saying this, but ... He took a deep breath, steadying himself. "Would you consider pretending to be my wife?" The words hung in the air like lightning before a storm. Maya blinked, unsure if she'd heard right. "You want me to what?" "Just for a month," he rushed on, his voice low but urgent, "until the shareholders' meeting. If they see I've settled down, it'll save the company and protect Emily's future." She stared at him, torn between shock and concern. "Ethan, that's crazy." "Maybe it is," he said, leaning forward. "But it's the only way. Please, Maya, I'm out of options." Outside, thunder rumbled faintly, though the forecast had promised a clear day. Inside, the air grew heavier, as if the universe itself knew something irreversible was about to begin. Maya's eyes met his, confused, uncertain, but somehow drawn to the sincerity in his plea. For a moment, the CEO and the nanny were just two people standing at the edge of a decision that could change everything. And just as she opened her mouth to respond, his office door swung open. "Ethan," barked a voice. It was Harold Blake, the company's chairman. "The press conference has been moved up. You have 1 hour to introduce your wife to the media or it's over." Maya froze. Ethan's heart dropped, and in that electric silence, the impossible question lingered in the air. Would she say yes? The air in Ethan's office felt like it had stopped moving. Maya's pulse quickened, her heart pounding loud enough that she swore he could hear it. Wife. The word echoed in her mind like a foreign sound. A nanny pretending to be a billionaire's wife. It sounded like the beginning of a bad movie or at the end of her piece. Ethan dismissed the chairman with a curt nod. "Give us a moment, Harold," he said, his voice tight. As the door closed, he turned back to Maya. You don't have to decide right now. She cut him off softly, her tone trembling. Ethan, what you're asking, it's not a small favor. You want me to lie to the media, to your board, to the world? He leaned forward, his eyes pleading. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. You've seen what this company means to me. It's not just about money, it's Emily's future, her stability, everything I built for her. His voice broke slightly at her name. If the board removes me, they'll sell the company. I'll lose everything, and I can't let her life fall apart again. Maya's breath hitched. She remembered the nights she'd seen him asleep on the couch, still in a suit, his daughter curled up beside him under a blanket. For all his wealth and power, he was just a man trying to keep his family together. I don't know, Ethan, she whispered, glancing at the floor. I'm not cut out for pretending. What if people find out? What happens when the month ends? Then it ends, he said firmly. You go back to being Emily's nanny, and I'll tell the press we're separating on good terms. That's it. You'll be compensated, of course, handsomely. She looked up sharply. This isn't about money. He paused, realizing the sting in her tone. I know, but I can't let you take this risk without something in return. Maya folded her arms, trying to steady her voice. And what about Emily? What will you tell her? Ethan hesitated, his jaw tightening. I'll tell her that you're helping Daddy for a while. She's smart, but she doesn't need to carry this mess on her little shoulders. For a moment, neither spoke. The sound of distant rain tapping against the windows filled the silence. Even though neither remembered it starting, Maya walked to the window, watching the gray clouds roll in. She thought of the little girl who ran into her arms every morning, whose laughter made the house feel alive. She thought of Ethan, the man everyone painted as cold and heartless, who she'd seen reading bedtime stories by the light of his phone when the power went out. She turned back to him, her decision trembling in her chest. If I say yes, this has to look real, Ethan. No games, no half-truths. You'll need to trust me completely. He nodded. You have my word. Then she exhaled, a shaky smile tugging at her lips. I'll do it. Ethan's shoulders sagged in relief, a flicker of gratitude softening his face. Thank you, Maya. You don't know what this means. Don't thank me yet, she said, crossing her arms with nervous defiance. Because once we start, we can't slip not even once. He gave a faint, wry smile. Understood? We'll make it believable. She hesitated, her voice dropping. And Ethan, if anyone finds out, it won't just ruin your company. It'll ruin me. He stepped closer, his tone solemn. I won't let that happen. You have my promise. Outside, thunder cracked, echoing through the glass towers. Inside, two lives had just intertwined under the pressure of desperation and loyalty. As Maya turned to leave, Ethan watched her realizing for the first time how fragile this whole charade could be. He whispered under his breath, almost to himself, this has to work. But neither of them knew that someone had been standing just outside the door listening. A camera shutter clicked faintly, and in that single sound, their secret began to unravel before it even began. By the time they reached the hotel ballroom that evening, the city had transformed into a blur of flashing lights and clicking cameras. The Henderson Global press conference was already buzzing with journalists, reporters, and investors, all hungry for one thing, a story. Ethan adjusted his tie, his expression a perfect mask of control, but beneath that polished surface, his pulse hammered. Beside him, Maya took a deep breath, trying to steady the trembling in her hands. The floor-length ivory dress she wore, chosen hastily by Ethan's assistant, fit her too well. She looked elegant, fragile, and far too out of place among the power suits and designer gowns. He leaned slightly toward her. You okay? He murmured. She nodded faintly, whispering back, I feel like I'm walking into a movie I didn't audition for. A tiny smirk curved his lips, then improvised. You'll do fine. Before she could respond, the doors opened and the The lights hit them like a tidal wave. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Camera flashes erupted. Ethan instinctively placed his hand on her waist, drawing her close as they walked toward the podium. In that moment, every pair of eyes turned to them. The man the world had called a reckless playboy now stood beside a woman who radiated warmth and grace. Their chemistry was undeniable, real enough to make even cynics blink twice. "Mr. Henderson," a reporter called out. "Is it true? Have you finally tied the knot?" Ethan smiled a calm, practiced expression. "Yes, I'd like you all to meet my wife, Maya Henderson." Maya's heart skipped. Hearing her name with this felt surreal, almost dangerous, but she kept her composure, offering a shy wave as the cameras flashed wildly. "How long have you been married?" another reporter shouted. Ethan chuckled. "We wanted to keep it private. Our relationship isn't about publicity, it's about family." The lie slid from his tongue effortlessly, but it hit Maya like a stone. Family. The word carried too much weight, and she could feel the burn of guilt beneath her smile. After the conference, the questions continued, but Ethan handled them, all with calm precision, every word calculated, every gesture protective. When it was finally over, he gently guided Maya toward the waiting car, his hand never leaving her back. The moment the door closed, she exhaled sharply. That was insane. He laughed softly, loosening his tie. "You did great." No one suspected a thing. Maya turned to him, her expression torn between disbelief and admiration. "You looked so confident, like you'd done this before." He smirked. "Years of business deals teach you how to sell a story." Then, more softly, "But you made it believable." "Thank you." She looked out the window, the city lights blurring past. Let's just hope the world buys it. But across the street, a man in a black sedan lowered his camera, scrolling through the photos. He had just taken Ethan's hand around Maya's waist. Her nervous smile, their intimate glances. He grinned coldly. "This will sell well," he muttered, dialing his editor. "Henderson's got himself a mystery wife. Find out everything about her." The next morning, the internet exploded. Hashtag Maya Henderson trended across every platform. Articles dissected her background, her smile, her clothes. Some called her a hidden heiress. Others labeled her a gold digger. When Maya stepped out of the car to drop Emily at school, cameras swarmed the gates. She shielded the little girl's face as flashes went off like fireworks. "Mrs. Henderson, how does it feel to be married to a billionaire? Were you his nanny before the marriage?" The last question froze her mid-step. She turned, her eyes wide, her breath caught. "How did Dathan's driver open the door immediately?" "Ma'am, please, get inside." As the car pulled away, Maya pressed a trembling hand over her chest. The lie had only just begun, but already the truth was clawing its way out. And somewhere in the chaos, a familiar face watched from a distance, someone from her past who knew exactly who Maya Collins really was. By the next morning, Henderson Tower was surrounded by paparazzi. Reporters shouted questions from the sidewalk. Camera drones hovered above the entrance, and the company's PR team was drowning in calls. Ethan sat in his office with his phone buzzing, non-stop shareholders congratulating him on his marriage. Tabloids demanding exclusives, and PR strategists pushing for a couple interviews. It should have been a victory, but instead, it felt like a trap tightening around his throat. Meanwhile, Maya sat on the edge of the guest room bed in Ethan's penthouse, her nerves frayed. Emily had fallen asleep, clutching her stuffed bunny, blissfully unaware of the chaos outside. Maya's phone vibrated again, a flood of messages from strangers. "Who are you really? Did you seduce your boss? We know you were his nanny. Admit it." Her hands trembled. How did they find out so fast? She had deleted every trace of her old life, her social accounts, her hometown photos, but somehow Someone had dug up her past. The door creaked open, and Ethan stepped in, sleeves rolled up, looking exhausted but steady. "Maya," he said softly, "we need to talk." She looked up, eyes weary. "They know, Ethan. They know I was your nanny." He clenched his jaw, anger flashing briefly in his eyes. "I'll handle it." "How?" "They're calling me a fraud online. They're saying I tricked you." Her voice broke. "I didn't sign up for this kind of hate." Ethan took a seat across from her, his voice low but firm. "I'll call a press conference. I'll set the record straight. Tell them the story about how we met and fell in love. It'll kill the nanny rumor before it spreads further." She stared at him, speechless. "You'll lie again?" His gaze met hers still, and vulnerability intertwined. "It's not about lying. It's about protecting you, protecting Emily." Her heart twisted. "And when this month ends, what happens when they realize it was all fake?" Ethan hesitated, his hand rubbing the back of his neck. "We'll deal with that later. Right now, survival comes first." Maya exhaled, torn between anger and disbelief. "You're so used to fixing things with control, with strategy. But people's hearts don't work like that." He looked up sharply, his voice quieter now. "Then tell me what to do." She swallowed hard. "Tell them the truth, or at least something close to it." He frowned. "You mean that you were Emily's nanny?" "Yes," she said, meeting his eyes. "But tell them why. Tell them you hired me because Emily needed care. Tell them we grew close through her. Make it about her, not us. It'll sound human real." Ethan's expression softened, a rare warmth in his usually guarded face. "You're braver than I gave you credit for." "I've had to be," she replied quietly. There was a long silence between them, heavy but strangely comforting. For the first time since this madness began, they weren't CEO and employee, or fake husband and wife. They were just two people caught in the storm together. He finally nodded. "All right, we'll do it your way." Before either could speak again, a voice echoed from the doorway. "You might want to think twice before that." Both turned sharply. Standing there was Samantha Lee, Ethan's ex-fiancée and the company's public relations director. Her perfectly composed smile didn't reach her eyes. "Because if you go public with that story," she said, stepping into the room, "the board will find out you've been lying from the start. And when they do, Ethan, they'll destroy you." Maya's stomach dropped. Ethan's entire posture stiffened. Samantha's tone was silk over steel. "I told you, once mixing business and personal life would cost you everything. But this," her gaze flicked to Maya, "this is career suicide." Ethan rose to his feet, cold fury flashing behind his calm exterior. "Stay out of it, Sam." She tilted her head, smiling faintly. "Oh, I will. But don't say I didn't warn you when the board demands answers." As she turned and walked out, Maya's breath caught in her chest. The illusion of safety shattered. The lie that was supposed to save Ethan's company was now threatening to destroy it and her along with it. And what neither of them knew was that Samantha had already made her next move on anonymous tip to the media, one that would expose the entire charade by morning. The next morning dawned gray, thick with tension that hung in the air like static before lightning. Ethan hadn't slept. Neither had Maya. The glow of the television screen bathed the penthouse living room in cold light as the morning news rolled out the headline that made both their hearts stop. Exclusive: Henderson's wife exposed former nanny, posing as CEO's spouse. Maya's face filled the screen photos from the gala, from the press conference, even one from months ago, holding Emily's hand at a park. The anchor's voice cut deep. Sources confirmed that Maya Collins, now Maya Henderson, was employed as the billionaire's live-in nanny just weeks before their alleged marriage. Was this a business move or something more scandalous? Maya's breath caught. "Oh my God," she whispered, her voice trembling. They know everything. Ethan stood, frozen, jaw clenched, fury simmering beneath his skin. Samantha, he muttered. She's behind this. He turned to Maya, eyes blazing with protective instinct. Pack a bag. I'm taking you and Emily out of here until this dies down. But she shook her head, tears brimming. Running won't fix it, Ethan. It'll only make us look guiltier. He exhaled sharply, pacing. You think I care how it looks? They're tearing you apart online, Maya. They're calling you a liar, a gold digger. I am lying, she cut in, her voice cracking. We both are. Silence fell. He looked at her, then really looked down for a moment. The sharp edges of his anger softened. You did this for me, he said quietly. For my daughter. You don't deserve to be punished for that. Maya turned away, her shoulders trembling. You don't get it. I can handle people judging me. But Emily, she'll grow up and find this one day. What will she think when she learns it was all fake? Ethan stepped closer, lowering his voice. Then let's make it not fake. Her head snapped up, disbelief flashing in her eyes. What are you saying? He swallowed hard, his tone trembling with something he hadn't let himself admit before. I'm saying, maybe it doesn't have to be an act anymore. Maybe somewhere between the pretending and the chaos, it stopped feeling like a lie. Maya froze, her heart pounding in her ears. Ethan, don't. But before she could finish, his phone rang. The name flashing on the screen made his stomach twist. Harold Blake, the chairman. He answered, his voice clipped. Harold, save it. Ethan, came the cold reply. The board has called an emergency vote. They want you out by the end of the day. The scandal's too deep. And that woman, don't you dare blame her. Ethan snapped. Your loyalty's admirable. Harold sneered. But this company doesn't need a hero. It needs a clean image. The line went dead. Ethan stood there for a long moment, his breathing shallow. When he finally turned, Maya's expression was full of worry. They're removing you, aren't they? He gave a small nod, his voice hollow. By sunset, I'll be finished. Maya took a hesitant step closer. Then tell them the truth. Tell them it wasn't my idea. Tell them I never wanted this. Ethan looked at her with a mixture of sadness and affection. If I do that, they'll destroy you. The press will eat you alive. You'll never work again. Tears welled in her eyes. So you'll take the fall for me. I'd take worse, he said softly, before either could speak again. A faint voice called from the hallway. Emily, still in her pajamas, clutching her stuffed bunny. Daddy, why are you sad? Ethan knelt down quickly, forcing a smile. I'm not sad, sweetheart. Daddy's just tired. Emily blinked, looking between them. Are you and Miss Maya still married? The question struck like a knife. Maya froze, unable to speak. Ethan's throat tightened, his voice breaking. We're still together, baby, always. Emily smiled and ran to Maya, wrapping her tiny arms around her. Good, because I like it when we're all together. And for a brief moment, the chaos, the headlines, the lies all faded. But when Maya glanced out the window, she saw them reporters swarming the entrance, microphones ready, headlines already written. There would be no peace after today, because by nightfall, Ethan would face the board, and she would face the world. The boardroom of Henderson Global Holdings had never felt so hostile. Normally, it was a place where Ethan commanded respect, where his voice carried authority, and his decisions shaped futures. But today, every seat around the long mahogany table was filled with judgment. The air smelled of expensive cologne, polished wood, and quiet betrayal. Ethan stood at the head of the table, his tie loose, his expression calm but resolute. Behind him, the city skyline gleamed like a cruel reminder of everything he was about to lose. Harold Blake adjusted his cufflinks, his tone icy. Mr. Henderson, the evidence is overwhelming. You misled the board, the press, and our shareholders. You fabricated a marriage to manipulate public perception and secure your position. That's not leadership, it's deceit. Ethan's jaw tightened. I didn't do this for publicity. I did it to protect my daughter. My life is already public enough. I just wanted to shield her from the chaos your headlines caused. Murmurs rippled around the table. Harold leaned forward, voice dripping with disdain. Your daughter is not this company's responsibility. But your actions, Ethan, have consequences. You brought your personal mess into corporate affairs. The board has already voted. You're being removed as CEO, effective immediately. The words landed like a hammer, but Ethan didn't flinch. He simply nodded once, the muscles in his jaw flexing. Then I accept the decision, he said quietly. But understand, this Henderson Global didn't rise because of polished images or perfect reputations. It rose because I fought for it when no one else would. Harold smirked. Save the speech. You'll be escorted out within the hour. Meanwhile, down in the lobby, Maya stood, clutching a cup of untouched coffee, surrounded by chaos. Reporters were everywhere, flashing cameras, shouting questions, hurling accusations. Maya, did you marry him for money? Were you his mistress first? She wanted to disappear. Her palms were clammy, her throat dry. But when she saw the elevator doors open and Ethan step out, shoulders squared, despite the humiliation, something inside her broke. He walked toward her slowly, ignoring the cameras, his eyes locked only on hers. For a moment, the noise around them faded. It's over, he said simply. She shook her head, tears spilling over. No, it can't end like this. Ethan gave a sad smile. It already did. Taking the blame for everything, she whispered. You didn't deserve this. He reached out, brushing a tear from her cheek. Neither did you. But before either could say more, a reporter shoved a microphone between them. Ethan, do you admit that your marriage was fake? That Maya Collins was your nanny? Ethan looked directly into the nearest camera, his voice steady. Yes, he said. Maya was my daughter's nanny, but she's also the most genuine, selfless person I've ever met. She did what I asked her to do to protect my family. If you're going to blame anyone, blame me. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cameras flashed wildly. Maya's eyes widened, horror and gratitude colliding in her chest. Ethan, no. He turned to her, lowering his voice. It's the only way to end it. Security guards stepped forward, creating a path through the crowd. As they led him toward the doors, Maya's vision blurred with tears. The man who had once ruled boardrooms and commanded its headlines now walked away stripped of everything except his dignity. Emily's small voice echoed from behind Maya. Where's Daddy going? Maya knelt down, struggling to keep her voice from cracking. Daddy just has to fix something, sweetheart. He'll be back soon. But deep inside, she wasn't sure if that was true. Hours later, the headlines shifted again. Ethan Henderson steps down, admits fake marriage to protect daughter. The CEO who fell for his own lie. Maya sat alone in the penthouse living room, Emily asleep beside her. She stared at the dark skyline, haunted by what they had lost, what she had started to feel for the man who risked everything for her. The world saw a scandal, but she had seen his truth, and somewhere across the city. Ethan stood in the rain outside the headquarters he had built, looking up at its towering glass walls. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about business or image. He was thinking about her Maya, and the little girl who had given his empty house life again. He knew one thing for sure. He couldn't let it end here. Not like this. Tomorrow, he would find a way to make it right. Rain fell softly over the city that morning, a quiet cleansing after the storm. The world had already moved onto new headlines, new scandals, but for Ethan Henderson, time felt frozen. He stood outside the gates of a small community center in the suburbs. The same one where he used to drop off Emily before work when life was simpler. His once immaculate suits were replaced with rolled-up sleeves and quiet humility. Inside, laughter echoed. Children played in a room filled with bright murals and paper crafts. And there, on the floor, beside a circle of giggling kids, sat Maya Ding, a storybook with Emily curled into her lap. For a moment, Ethan just watched. No cameras, no investors, no spotlight. Just them. Maya looked up suddenly, as if she could feel his presence. Their eyes met across the room. Time seemed to pause, the chaos of the past month collapsing into silence. She stood, heart pounding, and walked toward him. "You shouldn't be here," she said softly, though her voice trembled more from emotion than anger. "I had to see you," Ethan replied. "And Emily." His gaze shifted to his daughter, who now waved at him happily from the carpet. Maya folded her arms, trying to stay composed. The media finally stopped circling the house. People have moved on. Maybe you should too. Ethan smiled faintly, a tired, sincere smile. "I don't want to move on from you." Her breath caught. "Ethan." He stepped closer, his tone quiet but firm. "I lost everything that month, my company, my reputation, my image. But in losing all that, I found something real. You, Emily's laughter. A home that actually feels like home." Maya looked down, her voice barely above a whisper. "You don't need to say that out of guilt." "It's not guilt," he said quickly. "It's truth. The one thing I stopped running from." Tears shimmered in her eyes, threatening to fall. "You deserve to rebuild your life. Without the rumors. Without me." He cut her off gently. "You are part of the life I want to rebuild." For a long moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the rain outside, tapping softly against the windows. Finally, she asked, "What about the company?" He gave a small, almost amused shrug. "Harold and the board got what they wanted. But I started something new. A smaller firm, honest work, no fake smiles. It's not Henderson Global, but it's mine." A faint smile touched her lips. "And you think the world will forgive you?" Ethan looked at her with quiet conviction. "I don't need the world to forgive me. I just hope you can." Her defenses finally broke. She laughed through her tears, shaking her head. "You're impossible." "Maybe," he said softly, taking her hands in his. "But I'm not pretending anymore." Maya's heart swelled, a warmth spreading through the aches she'd carried for weeks. For the first time, there were no lies, no pretense, just truth. Emily ran up then, clutching her bunny and looking up at them with big, hopeful eyes. "Daddy, are you staying?" Ethan knelt beside her, smiling. "If Mommy," he stopped himself, glancing up at Maya. "If Miss Maya says I can." Maya looked down at the little girl, then back at him, her lips curving into a gentle, tearful smile. "I think we'd like that." Emily squealed and hugged them both, her small arms linking them together as rain light streamed through the window. In that moment, everything, the lies, the losses, the pain faded into something purer, something earned. Months later, a new article quietly surfaced online. No flashing headlines, no scandal. Just a simple feature titled, "From Scandal to Redemption. The CEO Who Found His Heart." Accompanying photo wasn't taken at a gala or boardroom. It was of Ethan, Maya, and Emily at a children's fundraiser, laughing together as if the world outside didn't exist. And beneath it, a quote from Ethan read, "Sometimes we lose everything to find what truly matters. I was pretending to be a husband once. Now, I'm learning what it really means to be one." As the sun broke through the clouds, Maya closed the article with a quiet smile. Watching Ethan chase Emily through the garden. No cameras, no lies, no fear, just love, real, imperfect, and there's the end.